Sorry all our Muslim friends have left, but there are good Muslims and there are bad Muslims. And the majority of Muslims are probably good Muslims. But there are good Germans too, and in the end they didn't make a damn's worth of difference. Not a damn's worth of difference. I will know a moderate Muslim when they stand up and condemn these kind of statements and the actions that they inspire. It's not really hard to know who your friends are. But a lot of people have difficulty in knowing who their enemies are. And that's the problem we are facing today. Since Gaza is, for the younger people here, is something that they remember, let's go into Gaza. As I said, the Jews offered to give Gaza back to Egypt. Now, the reason they were occupying Gaza, and Egypt rejected it for 3 no's. No negotiation, no recognition, no peace. The reason that they occupied Gaza was they had been invaded twice. Actually, 3 times. Because they were attacked again in 1973. But at some point, of course, there's all this global pressure. Why is there a global pressure? Not only because Islam is global, but also because the left, the secular international left, which is supposed to care about women and gays, were hung from cranes in Islamic country, and women, there is no greater oppressor of women in the world today than Islam. With that, there isn't even the slightest question. 90% of the women of Egypt have their clitorises sliced off from Muslim custom. And most of these clitorectomies are done without anesthetic on adolescent girls with kitchen knives. Where's the outcry? What's the Women's Studies Department on this campus saying about that? I actually have visited them on occasion and asked them, and you should hear their excuses. So Gaza, Sharon decided that Israel would unilaterally withdraw from Gaza because there's this incredible pressure that comes. It's the settlements that are the problem. There were 7,500 Jews in Gaza. Why are settlements a problem? There are more than a million Arabs settled in Israel. It's not a problem for it's becoming a problem because they're increasingly being swept up in this Islamic revolution that's taking place that we ludicrously call the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
It's the Muslim winter is what it is. Why are settlements a problem? What's wrong with Jews living in the West Bank? It's because the Arabs are racist. Racism isn't obvious, but it's the same idea. They hate the Jews and they don't want any Jews living there. How do I know? Because Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PLO, has said so in so many words. There are not going to be any Jews in a liberated Palestine. How much clearer does it have to be? And yet, there's not a Jewish organization on this campus that is supporting this speech. Whether you agree with it or not, if you're a Jew, you should understand that this is a speech to defend the Jews. It's an utter disgrace. So Sharon decided we're going to unilaterally, and of course Jews don't want to be occupiers. Why should they? They're too busy creating cell phones. It's the most creative, productive society on the face of the earth, which is also why the Arabs hate Israel. Because of their creativity and productivity. Because it shows what a blight Islam, as it is currently interpreted, is on the Arab world. There are 300 million Arabs, there are 5 million Finns, and Finland, if you take away the oil that God, in one of his black moments, put under the earth there, if you take away their oil, their gross national product is less than that of Finland. And why is that? Well, part of the reason is that they keep all their women ignorant. They can't go to college. One of the reasons they overthrew the Shah was because he allowed women to get educated in Iran. The Ayatollah didn't like that. So the illiteracy rates are humongous in the Arab world. No wonder they're backward. So Sharon decided, we're going to remove this pretext for not signing a peace treaty. He misread the intentions. Okay, so they evacuated Gaza unilaterally. They also evacuated the 7,500 Jews who did not want to leave. They forcibly, that is Israel, forcibly removed the 7,500 Jews in Gaza. Why? Because they would have been massacred if he left them. Come on, this is not rocket science. What did those Jews do? Well, first of all, they were law-abiding. Yeah, they were Jews, they weren't Arabs. There are 1,200,000 Arabs, or 1,300,000, living in Gaza. The Jews, not only were they law-abiding, but they created a horticulture industry with greenhouses and irrigation and so forth. And they produced 10% of the entire gross national product of Gaza. Not a rich country. 10% is significant stuff. And if I may be self-critical about my own people, this is how sappy we Jews are. To make this peace gesture complete, to put the ribbons on it, Mortimer Zuckerman, the publisher of U.S. News, collected $14 million from Jewish philanthropists to buy the greenhouses and give it to the Palestinians or the Arabs, whatever you want to call them, of Gaza, as a peace gesture. On the day Hamas took over Gaza, on the day the Israelis left, Hamas destroyed the greenhouses, the irrigation, the whole industry, and started firing rockets into schoolyards in Sderot.
They're still doing it.
8,000 rockets have been fired. And what kind of rockets are they? They're not rockets that you hit a military installation with. They're incredibly inaccurate. They're just terrorist weapons against civilian populations. These are Nazis. That's who they are. And yet, on college campuses, we have people wringing their hands over the poor Gazans because after 3 years or whatever it was of accepting the unacceptable, how long do you think a country like America would allow, say Canada, to launch rockets into schoolyards in this country with no reprisal? But the Jews did it. And then when they struck back, all you hear on college campuses is people crying over civilians that were killed in the attack. Well, why were they killed in the attack? Well, Hamas put its headquarters under a hospital. Hamas installs its rockets in neighborhoods where people live. And you would think that there wouldn't be so many idiots in the West who would fall for this, but there are. You have to ask yourself. I mean, Israel is in pretty dire straits. Iran is 1,000 miles away. Israel does not have strategic bombers. It has fighters, fighter planes. Whether they can actually carry out the job, taking away the nuclear capabilities. Of course, if you believe that Iran is building these nuclear sites for medical isotopes, I'm not going to get through to you. Israel is in a very hard place. A lot of it its own doing. Arafat was in exile in Tunisia. The Jews brought him back, armed his terrorists with 40,000 weapons. And that's because people, it's the hopey-changey thing. People wish, the wish is father to the thought. People want things to be better. They don't want to face the fact that there is evil in this world.
Yes, sir.
How is it that on our college campuses, and I will tell you that on our college campus, you can't even get the information. We've given out a pamphlet called Muslim Hate Groups on Campuses. I tried to place an ad for that pamphlet in, it's about 20 or 30 college papers. I actually got it into one at Ohio State. Of course, there was a big eruption. Read the pamphlet. It's just facts. It's just facts. The Muslim Students Association, Students for Justice in Palestine, these are Muslim Brotherhood groups, SDS and the politically brain-dead campus left, are all out there making apologies for Palestinian evil. If you think that this is, I always get accused, it's an abstraction. You can't say all Palestinians. Where's the Palestinian peace now? Where is the Palestinian one standing up in the West Bank and Gaza, or for that matter in the United States, for the rights of Jews? There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Jews who are standing up for the rights of Palestinians. It's all about intentions. It's all about the culture. And Palestine is a culture of hate. Oh, well, the reason that they have suicide bombers is they're desperate. The Israelis have tanks. Look, people have been oppressed in this world for thousands of years, horribly oppressed. But never, ever in the history of mankind has an oppressed people strapped bombs on its own children and sent them to blow themselves up with other children. And then tells them that if they're lucky enough to be male, they're going to go to heaven and get 72 virgins. That is sick. Gaza is a death cult. And the death cult is created in Gaza by Hamas, a similar death cult in the West Bank by the PLO. They lionize murderers of children, deliberate murderers of children. Well, that is somewhat redundant, since to murder somebody you have to have the intent to do it. Who goes around trying to kill purposely targeting little children, except psychopaths? And they have institutionalized, whatever that is, psychopathic behavior in Palestine, all of it. You can see it on the web. It's really easy. You watch these people preaching. You see the little kids they're dressed up like suicide bombers. I actually saw a really good documentary on HBO. It was called The Death in Gaza. It's done by liberals. And they followed these kids who were 12 and 13 years old, who were hanging around